Thanks, Alison, and thanks very much for the opportunity to speak. As Alison mentioned, I have a very thankful task of with my colleagues looking after a number of our bioenergy and energy from waste projects. So very happy to profile a few of those today, as well as announce a couple of new and very exciting initiatives that we've been working on over the last few months. As well as outlining our new investment priorities that, for those that were aware, were released over the last couple of days, and that's really to set the forward direction of where we're looking to invest our funds. So just by way of a bit of background for people who aren't familiar, ARENA, or the Australian Renewable Energy Agency, was established in 2012 with two main objectives. The first one, to improve the competitiveness of renewable energy technologies, and secondly, to increase the supply of renewable energy. And the timeframe for delivering these objectives is out to 2022, so a defined period of which we are looking to achieve these objectives. But those solutions that we invest in, looking to have having those come to market within the sort of timeframe about 2030 to 2040. So both near-term and longer-term outlook. The way ARENA operates, we operate very much as a commercially minded organisation, all being a government-owned entity. Our separate board of directors and executive all have varying degrees of private sector experience, and that sort of shines through in terms of our organisation, how we approach investments. I suppose the one key difference to point out, though, is our return on investment isn't necessarily monetary, but is obviously industry development and knowledge from projects which we then look to, in effect, recycle into industry to drive better outcomes that meet our objectives. And part of today is obviously explaining our role, but some of the projects that we invest in, commencing their knowledge sharing obligations or return on investment. As I said, that knowledge sharing mandate really does focus on breaking down these barriers, both commercial and technical, to leading to sustainable outcomes where there isn't a requirement for any government investment. And quite pleased to share as well that under varying sort of policy discussions at the federal level, ARENA now has legislated $800 million of funding, of which it will look to invest over that lifetime to deliver those objectives. So just a bit of a snapshot on where ARENA operates. It is, as you can see on the left to right there, from the research and development stage of the life cycle through to and including pre-commercial deployments, and again, subject to definition. And again, the way in which we approach investments in this various spectrum changes according to where we sit or where the project or investment is in that spectrum. One of the key things is that we're always committed to achieving maximum impact and value from the projects that we invest in, with the minimal amount of capital investment required to achieve that. So again, trying to drive commercial outcomes. Another point in terms of that flexibility of approach, we don't just limit ourselves to providing grant funding and obviously structuring how we invest to drive outcomes for all parties. And pleased to announce that we do play a very complementary role with the CFC, and my counterpart Henry will speak later on today, where we both work very closely in terms of projects and the Innovation Fund, which is highlighted there as well. And again, a snapshot just on our technologies to date. So that's sort of the current snapshot of where our funds have been invested to date. Fair to say that at the in terms of bioenergy, which again I'll come to definitions in a minute, but does encompass the waste from energy or energy from waste side of things as well. But solar PV there obviously it does play a fairly big representation, and that's really driven by the maturity of that industry and its position in terms of driving towards standalone commercial deployment. But a key thing to note across that spectrum there is the co-investment that's attracted. That currently stands at $2.4 billion. So again, what we see is investing these funds to drive bigger and better outcomes. So the total value we've invested to date in our bioenergy portfolio is in excess of $100 million, and very pleased to profile a couple of these projects later on in this talk, as well as a couple of new projects that very pleased to announce as well. As I mentioned before, ARENA's new investment priorities were released over the last 1st of May by our Chief Executive and our Minister, Minister Frydenberg. And these investment priorities really drive and dictate where we think our funds should be invested to drive maximum impact. And I'll just quickly recite these to you just to give you some context, and you'll see sort of the theme emerging. So the first one is delivering secure and reliable electricity, and that, using one for better term, delivering affordable, low-emission electricity solutions that keep the lights on. Again, a media term that everyone would be familiar with. Accelerating solar PV innovation, and that builds on existing work that Australian research institutions have developed in that sector. Improving energy productivity, helping reducing energy costs and emissions in transport, building and industry sectors, so again, potentially relevant to the discussion today. And lastly, exporting renewable energy. That's creating new scalable export opportunities that leverage our, I suppose, competitive advantage in terms of renewable energy. But I think it's fair to say that most relevant in terms of the energy from waste sector is that first one, and that's delivering secure and reliable electricity. And that's moving away from the concept of building generation in the form of, say, solar and wind, to now understanding how does that play a role in the future energy mix, and the concept of baseload power, of which energy from waste does have that characteristic. So again, our position here is really longer term, looking to what mix of generation we have, not just today, but in that forward horizon as we transition our electricity markets. So this includes areas such as demand response, pumped hydro, batteries, CST, power to gas, and of course bioenergy and energy from waste. So again, mentioning how closely we work with the CFC, just to in terms of some of the industry research that they've done, which highlights the order of magnitude of which the sector represents. So in terms of their study analysis, some of their key findings have included that globally there's a strong representation of the energy from waste sector, but again underrepresented here in Australia. And I think to put figures on it, the CFC have found that in Australia the sector represents about 1% of total generation, but in terms of advanced economy averages, that's up at sort of 2.5%. Another key finding being from a cost point of view, if you look at the overall package of energy delivered, it is cost competitive with other forms of generation, and also brings a number of benefits that aren't necessarily monetised. In terms of the value of the sector, again, the CFC have estimated that the opportunity represents total investment opportunities in the region of sort of $3.5 to $5 billion. So again, a very material an exciting opportunity there. And of course, in terms of key sectors where a difference can be made, and that includes obviously the urban waste environment, as well as livestock and food processing, both markets that are ripe for further developments. So now I'll just talk to a couple of our existing projects that again have been operating for some time and are starting to get track record and deliver some learnings and knowledge to industry. So the first one is a company by the name of Southern Oil Refining. So they're based in Wagga in New South Wales, and also have operations in Gladstone in Queensland. And again, a very innovative and emerging company that sees the future benefits in terms of renewable fuels. So our investment here is we provided $2.5 million for the establishment of an advanced biofuels laboratory there, with an associated feasibility for further expansion. This will all be based in their Gladstone plant and is seen as a centre of excellence for renewable fuels in Australia. And again, working quite closely with the Queensland Government, who have identified the opportunity that this sector represents. Another activity based in Queensland is the Unity Water project. Again, a feasibility study to look at the opportunity presented there in terms of leveraging existing assets to take in other feedstock sources to drive, again, renewable outcomes. So this feasibility study where ARENA provided $300,000 was for assess the commercial viability of converting one of its sewage treatment facilities to produce biogas and electricity from incremental waste sources. So again, seeing co-digestion of these feedstocks to drive these commercial outcomes. So we see this as a blueprint when and should the project eventuate for regional wastewater treatment plants to become, not just simple wastewater treatment plants, but renewable energy centres that take in waste from other sources. Another existing project is with Renew Energy, or the company previously known as Geodynamics. And I believe they'll be sharing some of their knowledge from this project to date later on today. But ARENA here provided funding to assist in the development of an anaerobic digestion facility in Goulburn in New South Wales, on site that's aiming to produce in the region of 4,000 megawatt hours of capacity annually to the abattoir that it's co-located at. And the innovative aspect of this is really around both the operating model and the technical elements of the project, where it uses it's blending biogas with natural gas to meet peak demand and drive down those peak demand charges that businesses such as abattoirs are highly sensitive to. So again, we see this as a replicable model where not just the technology but the ownership model where third-party experts, as Renew Energy are, would essentially drive deployment of the technology whilst delivering outcomes to the end facility where it's co-located. So again, we see this organisation as a leader and hopefully able to drive further deployment. So just in terms of I suppose new announcements, which I'm very, very pleased to announce today around exciting projects that we've had approved funding for and are now working towards delivering these. The first one is with the Mount Alexander Sustainability Group, and this is ARENA's providing $150,000 for a study here to assess both the technical and commercial merits of localised, smaller scale energy from waste that would leverage organic waste from the local area and deliver renewable energy to the surrounding area. Quite exciting with this is the stakeholder group involved. That includes the local water authority, the regional council, and a couple of large industrial users. So again, hopefully deliver a project that becomes a replicable model for other regional areas. And lastly, RE Group and Garth Lamb will be talking shortly. Again, a very exciting project that has huge potential. ARENA's providing $400,000 to both RE Group and Energy Australia to complete a comprehensive feasibility study into the development of a dedicated energy from waste facility. The proposed project will consider the technical and commercial feasibility of integrating an energy from waste program and furnace into the existing Mount Piper coal-fired power station in Lithgow. So obviously, this project will the use of the RDF will displace fossil fuels. So again, from ARENA's perspective, we see this as a very replicable model, considering the number of fossil generators around the country. Should the project proceed, it will be the first of a kind deployment in Australia, and again, I think we see, having done previous work in the hybridisation of these generators, that it does represent significant potential. And again, we're very keen to understand the outcomes, both technically and commercially, to allow us to disseminate that knowledge more broadly, so that other operators in the sector can look to leverage and drive similar outcomes. So I'll conclude there, and just before Garth comes up to talk, very happy to take any comments or questions. All right, great, thank you very much.